Hi, folks. Welcome to Inclusive Collective, where we share stories and learnings of inclusive people, organizations, and innovation. I'm your co-host, Nadia Butt. I'm an organizational development and belonging strategist. And as always, I am joined by my colleague and friend, Rob Hadley, a people and culture strategist specializing in DE&I and people analytics. Rob, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was, as you know, they're always delightful. They're always
Mm-hmm.
delightful, always a lot of fun
What'd you
to
cook and
get
what'd you bake?
folks together. Well, I went to someone's house this year.
Oh,
Usually I host, and so it was nice. I didn't have to cook too much and got to just enjoy being with
that's
family and friends.
awesome.
It's kind of
Yeah,
amazing.
that's really good. I'm going to ask you a question related to Thanksgiving.
Okay.
What are you grateful for this year as it relates to your professional side of your life?
As it relates to, wow, I am,
Probably
I
because I already know what your personal side is. I know what you're grateful for.
No, I think I'm tremendously grateful. We've had a lot of, I feel like in terms of in a professional side, a professional sense, really turning the corner. I'm super grateful for the people that have been, uh, really important advocates for me in my work. And so in the partnership that, and that includes you. So I've been able to develop a number of friendships that are, you know, professional as well.
Mhm.
And people have just been really supportive. And I feel like, professionally, I'm turning the corner and starting to achieve some of the things that I wanted to. How about you?
Love
What
it.
prompted the question?
Yeah, well, because, I think we all like when we speak, you and I think we do talk about like what we're grateful for in our lives, just like good health, family, friends, like the few friends that I have left. but but I we never really talk about the professional aspect. And so I would say similar to you, like I think the relationships this past year, like being able to build what we've built with this podcast, with our business, the interactions that we've had with colleagues. I'm really grateful for that because I continue to learn and be challenged every day.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's been really cool.
Yeah, and I think I mean, I should say the clients, they're the number.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Wow,
And the client.
wow.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, it is quite a bit different. I worked for big companies for a long time, and I think that getting to know additional groups of people at regular intervals and build new relationships with folks in different companies and organizations, that's really cool. And when you work in DEI, the kind of people that you're hanging out with generally are people that share your values. And so I think it's really spectacular.
Yeah, totally. That's great. Thanks for playing along.
All right. All right. Nadia, let's talk about what we're doing today and this week on Inclusive Collective. So we're going to digest some post-Thanksgiving DEI news. See what I
Mhm.
did there?
I did.
That's right. We're going to go back. Just Nadia and Rob, we're bringing you the latest. We'll talk about the impact of climate change on women and on the LGBTQIA plus community. We'll talk about Amazon's return to work or get out policy, women's soccer's big deal, and a doctor gets fired for political posts. So let's get to it.
Let's do it.
All right, Nadia. So this past week, the fifth National Climate Assessment was released by the U.S. Global Change Research Program, and that's a project that's mandated by Congress that
Mhm.
aims to help the public understand climate change impacts. The report calls out specific impacts on women and sexual and gender minorities. In particular, some things that were particularly called out: the link between miscarriages and low birth weight
Mhm.
from climate change. There's the fact that women of color are disproportionately exposed to heat and pollution and therefore are more likely to have complications in childbirth. There are, in terms of sexual and gender minorities, social, economic, and health disparities, including the lack of planning for climate related disasters and the unique needs of that population. So,
Mhm.
Nadia,
Yeah. So I think they said that this report is done like every 5 years or something like that.
yeah. So it must have
And
been authorized many years ago.
yeah, it must have been authorized many years ago, or it was not done because some prior administrations don't believe in climate change.
Right. Or
So
women.
perhaps our crisis, or yeah, or don't believe in women or any other minoritized group. So
Yeah.
so it was an interesting. I mean, I didn't read the full report, but I definitely read some of the findings, like you had mentioned. I think it'll be interesting to see what our advocates and politicians do with this information. I think what not necessarily surprised me, but I was very much interested in learning more about was the women that are disproportionately experience the burden of climate change because of unique mental, sexual, and reproductive health needs that intersect with their social, racial, and economic disparities. It talked about women that in particular that live in low income communities, and how that disproportionately impacts BIPOC, particularly Black women. Again, nothing I'm surprised to learn or hear, but it's interesting when you do a report and there's findings, so there's evidence, right? This is like what we mean about finding the data that supports our thoughts and our assumptions. And so, like I said, it'll be really interesting to see what our politicians and advocates do for with this information.
Yeah, we talked to just along those lines. We had Dr. Maya Hightower on a few weeks ago from Equality AI, and she
Mhm.
talked about the social determinants of health. That so based on social factors, we can predict health outcomes, and climate change. It just follows along with that. It really exacerbates those social determinants of health. So stress on any system exposes the weakness, and so we saw this with COVID, and climate change will continue to put stress on all of those the systematic inequities that we see. And so,
Right.
yeah, and I have a prediction. They won't do much with it.
Yeah.
Like,
We'll follow up
yeah,
with that.
yeah. So we'll come back
Yeah.
to that.
Oh, good. Are we cynical? Like, what's happening? All right. So, my story here, Rob. So, this back to office kind of issue or topic has been an ordeal. Some companies have shifted to making it mandatory. Well, according to CNBC, Amazon says their employees may not get promoted if they ignore their return to office mandate. So, this policy is at least 3 days a week when folks need to be in a physical office. It's
Mm,
for the corporate employees of Amazon. And of course, many employees have resisted or upset about this kind of policy. And now, if managers or HR are finding that employees are not in compliance with this, then they have the right, and it could impact an individual's promotional readiness
hmm.
opportunity. Reactions.
Isn't it funny, Nadia, that Amazon, the original internet disruptor and
Mhm.
cloud computing giant, wants everyone to be in a physical space? So
Yeah.
that's one observation.
Yeah,
Two, have you noticed that Alexa? Do you have an Alexa?
of course, but I
Yeah.
unplug it because I don't
Yeah.
know
Have
to
you noticed that
trust
it
it.
sucks?
Yeah,
It kind of sucks, right? So
yeah,
remember a few years ago when you first got your Alexa, it was like it's going to change everything,
yeah,
and that was
sure.
like 2016, 2017, and it's like wow, we're going to be able to do everything. We're just going to talk to Alexa, and everything's going to get done for us. And
Yeah,
now I can't even get it to play a song, right?
yeah.
Like I can't, like
I know, you have
like
to, like,
it
yell at it.
misfires on everything, right?
Yeah, that's
So
true.
just as an aside, this makes me wonder if this is where Chat GPT is headed, right?
Yeah,
Like it's like, oh,
right.
is it going to change everything? It's like, well, Chat
Or
GPT
not.
is it's basically like a thing that answers questions in an okay fashion.
Yeah,
It's like
totally.
it
Right,
does an
right,
okay
right.
job at answering questions. All right, so my, I'm going to come back to the news story here, but like I do wonder if Amazon's slashing people, the high turnover
Mhm,
is, because I know that they eliminated folks in that Alexa division. So is that part of the problem? Are we
sure.
at the apex of Amazon culture, right? So it seems like the culture that they have is something they created in 1999, and it's really hard for them to let go, right? And so,
Mhm.
you know,
1999,
I'm
wow.
just saying, like for me, like
Yeah,
that's what that feels like.
sure.
And it's if you're successful at anything, or if anyone's successful, it's very hard to imagine the conditions that made you successful could change, right?
Yeah.
That the set behind you on stage has shifted a little bit.
Mhm,
Let me just read you one thing from that article. So it's
mhm,
Andy Jassy said, that's the CEO. He said that teams tend to be better connected to one another when they see each other in person more frequently. There's something about being face to face with somebody, looking them in the eye and seeing that they're fully immersed in whatever you're discussing that bonds people together. So that's simply a statement of something that used to exist, right? Like I had a conversation this past week with someone in Botswana that I had never met. and we're talking about collaborating on a project. We'll likely never be in the same room. And
Mhm.
I immediately knew that I could have a good working relationship with this person,
Sure.
right? And I could, and that's the new normal. And so that it seemed very outdated.
Yeah, well, what's interesting too is and I don't know the CEO on a personal level. I don't know what his particular circumstances are, but it's really easy to make comments like that when you're an able-bodied, like, you don't have any sort of neurodivergent needs. Perhaps you don't need any accommodations because 'cause you're not living with a disability yet. So it's really easy, I think, to make comments like that. I understand that companies are concerned with productivity, perhaps real estate. A lot of companies spend a lot of money on their real estate. We know
Right,
this from
right.
prior organization. And then collaboration, I understand that. There are some great benefits of being in person, but like you said, right? Like, there you can absolutely be productive and have great collaboration with someone virtually if you know how to use the tools that there's so many resources and tools that are available to many folks that to everyone where you can work collaboratively with someone. So I feel like this is such an impact on someone's livelihood. It makes me wonder how we are managing people and the organization's values when you say that you're gonna put a policy in place where if you do not come in the mandated 3 days a week, then that's gonna hinder your advancement opportunities. Like, that
Sure.
especially when we consider the caretaking, the flexibility,
Hmm.
sitting in do you know what the morale of my morale was, like, driving into Boston during traffic, like, during during those morning hours and the
You
afternoons, like,
drove into Boston,
I
like in a
drove into
car?
Boston.
Eh,
I live 11 miles north of the city. I carpooled in with my friend, and it took us over an hour and a half on some mornings to get into Boston. Like, waste of time, my morale, and then you consider these people that have neurodivergent needs or people living with disabilities. We put these policies or rules into place without having conversations with employees and understanding how we can mitigate biases. Of course, I'm sure there's accommodations for folks, but it really just it just to me is just it just seems interesting. That's all. It's like, why are we continuing to do this where I just fear. This is what I fear, Rob. You know what I fear? I fear we put policies in place like this and forever and a day we're rewarded employees into roles of management or leadership. I was just telling a friend this that most people that are rewarded in or advance in our organizations are advanced because they have technical ability, not because they have management skill sets or leadership skill set or skills, right? It's because they have a technical ability. And I'm not saying you can't learn management skills or you can't learn how to be a better leader, but oftentimes we promote because people are working the 80-hour work weeks or or 120-hour work weeks, or they're able to come in really early and stay really late. And so
Yeah.
I feel like we're continuing to reward based off of not necessarily the right behaviors. Is that a rant again? I am
That
like crushing it with my rants.
that one kinda got away from you, yeah. And don't forget, Nadia,
Yeah.
we've, doing this for what, 2.5, 3 years, and you and I, right? Like, we've been in the same place, like, only a couple times in the last couple of years, right? And so
Right.
able to build, pretty amazing show here. So,
Yes.
so I would say that's the way I would look at it.
Yeah, that's true. All right, folks, let's take a break and we'll be back with some more deets.
Welcome back to Inclusive Collective. Nadia, women's soccer. Let's talk women's soccer.
Love it.
You're in?
I'm
All
in.
right. So we haven't talked about this. It happened a couple weeks ago, but so the National Women's Soccer League announced that they had reached a deal on a new 4-year contract beginning in 2024 with CBS, ESPN, Prime Video, and Scripps Sports. It's going to pay that soccer league $60 million per year, 240 over the course of that deal. And what do you think that is in terms of versus what they did have in terms of TV deals? What multiple of what they had previously do you think that is?
Oh,
How much do you think their old TV deal was worth?
I don't know how much worth, but it probably maybe it increased by like 40%.
40 times.
No.
It increased 40 times. So yeah, so huge win, and they're going to air 118 games over those networks over the next 4 years.
Wow,
Are you
that's
excited?
awesome. I'm really excited. I mean, don't people nowadays tend to watch more women's football versus men's football?
What do you no? Like, what do you mean?
No?
D-
What do you
no,
mean?
no, they don't. No, but so
I mean,
no,
my family does. My
not.
family watches women's soccer all day long.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Is that not the
Where do
case
you?
in your household?
No, no,
Oh,
no, and on most households, right? I mean, like,
okay.
the men's ratings for these type of things are orders of magnitude more, but that is a
Okay.
very big increase, right? That's a 40-time increase in terms of, the TV deal that the NWSL is going to get. So, um, I can't tell if the economics make sense, but you know, it seems like both of these parties are happy. They're anticipating a much bigger increase for 2027, right? They talked about like not wanting to be locked in past 2027 because that's the next Women's World Cup, and they think they can get another bigger deal coming out of
Sure.
that. So
Sure.
this will allow the women's sport, again, the NWSL to become the most prominent women's soccer league in the world, right?
Wow.
Like half of, at least half of this will go to the players and allow them to offer much higher salaries and pull
Yeah,
the best players from around the world. So
that's great.
really cool.
Incredible.
And perhaps at the end of it, then you can say that it's bigger than men's soccer.
Okay, well, maybe just in my household it is right now,
I
but I'm hoping for most households. So we'll hold out on that, but that's awesome. All right, I'll go here to the final deet here. I had mentioned this a few weeks ago where a doctor who ran a cancer center at a NYU
oh,
hospital was suspended for social media posts relating to the October 7th attack by Hamas on Israel. So that doctor, Dr. Benjamin Neal, filed a lawsuit against NYU claiming that the suspension left his reputation, quote, in tatters, end quote, and caused him to lose one consulting arrangement and left several others, quote, in imminent peril, end quote.
mm.
Any thoughts?
Well, but tell me, these are pro-Israeli posts as well, right?
Yeah, so this particular person posted pro-Israeli posts.
Yeah, yeah. So I was not able to look at the posts that the doctor made. So I can't say, to what degree or how appropriate they were. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago when, you have this megaphone, you have social media, you have to think about and live with the posts that you make, and certainly the associations. Like there's like this order or degree of separation that you have to sometimes be worried about with what you're saying and posting, right? So the richest man in the world is in trouble right now because he commented on anti-Semitic posts on the social media network that he owns, right?
Right.
Like, so in terms of, ironically, so, um, you know, I, so you have to really look at the things that you're posting, that you're re-Xing or whatever it's called these days. But yeah, what was your take on this one?
Yeah, I mean, so we mentioned this story before. We mentioned some other stories a few weeks ago when we were noticing that people were losing their jobs or being put on suspension or being put on warning. So there are several other folks who have posted on social media. And of course, I can't speak to all of those instances. Like you said, I didn't see all of the posts, so I can't really like assess it. But on the flip side, what I do feel is that there's an opportunity, I think, for leaders to navigate difficult conversations. Like I keep going back to this because I don't know if we've built that skill set in particular to be able to have those conversations, particularly ones where we may not agree or align with someone. And again, I'm not advocating at all for anti Semitism, Islamophobia, anti Palestinian or anti Arab sentiments, any sort of phobia. I'm like not for it at all. I want to make that very clear. And I think, again, there's an opportunity where leaders could seek to understand, maybe have humble inquiry to really gather their employee sentiments to understand where their perspectives or lived experiences are before
Hmm.
making a decision of perhaps putting someone on leave or making someone, go get suspended. Again, I'm not advocating. I don't know in particular what that Dr. Benjamin Neal has done, But I'm just saying in general, there's an opportunity for us, like you said, to kind of like thoughtfully think through what repercussions may occur. People are still in pain and have been for the last 6 to 7 weeks, and I have no doubt that that will continue to happen. So again, I think there's an opportunity for leaders to navigate these really challenging conversations, difficult conversations, build that skill set um, before they react.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think usually when we're dismissing people for their views, I'm uncomfortable. uh, Most of the time, going to be uncomfortable, right? And that it's usually going to be an overreaction, and there is the potential for opening the organization to litigation risk at the same time,
Right.
right? If they are overreacting. So, like you said, it's a very tricky time for companies and organizations. So they really need to be listening to their stakeholders, all of their stakeholders,
Right.
deliberately, right? Sometimes we move too fast on these things. And
Right.
then there's an opportunity to have some compassion. Right now, I'm even more compassionate about with what we're dealing with, right? In terms of the folks that don't agree, that I don't agree with.
Hmm.
I'm even more leaning into giving them at least the benefit of the doubt to an extent. Right, there's obviously some things that are over the top, and I think that the Twitter CEO is dealing with that right now, right? So, but emotions are very raw. It's probably a good practice to have an extra little helping of compassion right now as we get through the next, hopefully not too
I
long.
know. Hopefully not too long. Yep, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Let's take another quick break and be right back with some rants and raves. Stay with us.
Welcome back, folks. All right, Rob, it's that time for rants and raves.
Am
Uh,
I, we're
I
just
think
raving.
we're raving today, so let's just rave and rave.
You asked
And
if we were getting skeptical or cynical earlier,
mhm,
and like we've been just pumping out the raves,
I
right? Like
know.
not even barely any
You
rants.
know what? It's because it's that time of year. It's the leading into the winter. It's cold. It gets dark early. It's like let's just keep it light.
But if you limit yourself from doing Stephen Miller related rants,
Oh
then
boy,
there's almost nothing to rant about. Like he
that's true.
just dominates the news.
The news cycle, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what do you have for us today?
All right. So this is a story from The Guardian this past week, calling out the efforts of Dr. Jess Wade, an Imperial College of London research fellow. She investigates spin selective charge transport for chiral systems. Nadia, did you know that?
I did not know that.
That's what I was considering majoring in college. It was
I know,
before I
I
went into
know.
marketing.
I'm not
I
surprised.
was doing chiral systems. I had no idea what a chiral system.
I don't
All right.
either.
All right. So since 2017, Dr. Wade has been campaigning tirelessly to raise the profile of female scientists and scientists of color. And Nadia, you saw this, right? So
Yeah.
there was, it's a UK article, right? Obviously, the Imperial College of London, right? I feel like we're very British on this show. We had Ali,
Oh, yeah.
Javad
Ali Jabad, yep,
and Kathy May Carlson,
yep.
right? So I feel like we're very international at this point.
Oh,
But
yeah.
the numbers are incredible. So within the academic community, 8% of undergraduates, 1.4% of lecturers and postgraduates, and 0.4% of science professors living in the UK are Black. There are 25 Black UK professors working in STEM out of a total professorship of more than 6,600.
Oh, wow.
And so, what Dr. Wade's efforts have been around, obviously getting them the attention that they deserved. She has found that the big scientific awards, they're not being won by people that are minoritized because
Right.
they don't get nominated. So just the act of nominating folks will increase their chances in the future of winning these big awards, which will draw more attention to them as well and their work. And so really cool work that she's doing there, and like a really great example of understanding the problem and then taking very targeted, focused action in order to change things.
That's great. That's a great rave. Thank you, Dr. Wade. All right. So, Erica Robin is the first to represent my parents' home country, Pakistan, in a Miss Universe pageant in the contest's 72-year run. She wore a baby pink burkini during the swimsuit competition. She placed in the top 20, made history as the first woman to represent Pakistan. Just so excited that Pakistan's part of, I mean, I don't really love pageants, but okay, is part of this Miss Universe pageant and is representing and really representing like the rich culture and the heritage of Pakistan, particularly because I've been there a number of times. It really is just a beautiful, it's beautiful landscape, it's beautiful food, beautiful culture, and of course the heritage. So really, really cool to see.
I
Erica Robin is part of the 1% minority Christian population in Pakistan. So I thought it was really cool that she was representing.
I thought so. I'm glad you said that. I was wondering how you felt about pageants in general,
Yeah.
and the
I
Miss
mean,
Universe pageant, and but I looked at this a little bit, and did you see that the person who owns the Miss Universe pageant now, right? So like it used to be Donald Trump,
yeah, I
then it
was
was a
gonna,
big company,
yeah.
and now it is a Thai trans reality star and
Oh,
who has worked to modernize and make the event more inclusive, allowing mothers and married women to compete,
yeah.
which is nice in 2023. But unfortunately, Nadia, I did want to tell you that the event is struggling financially and maybe on the
Oh
verge of
no.
bankruptcy. So we could make a bid for it, is what I'm saying. We
Uh,
could be the
it could
owners
be.
of the Miss Universe
Oh my
pageant.
gosh. That's actually, well, I mean, not incredible because that's kind of sad to hear, but at the same time I do love that they it sounds like they were trying to change the positioning and values of who is represented within the organization. So I guess if our listeners care enough about the Miss Universe pageant, feel free to make a donation to them
Or buy it if you're a
or
rich
buy
listener.
it.
Yeah.
Very good, folks. Well, that is it for Inclusive Collective this week. Rob, thank you so much for a great episode. Inclusive Collective is a production of Rifelion Media and edited by Ari Mathey. We would love to hear from you, so please send us your feedback at inclusivecollective@rifelion.com. You can find us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Be sure to also follow us on LinkedIn. You can subscribe to our Inclusive Collective newsletter. And also, please feel free to subscribe and rate us wherever you get your podcasts today. Thanks again. We will be back next week. Be well.